Hi, we're back. This is Health This Week. I'm Don Baillargeon. Thanks for staying with us. There have been two large studies that came out that talked about whether or not the PSA screening test for prostate cancer has actually been helping to save lives. I'm joined now by Dr. Stan Wasbin. Dr. Stan Wasbin from South Orange County, California. Dr. Wasbin, we've been on other programs before. I'm really glad to have you here.
Glad to be here, Don.
Doctor, about this study. What is the study revealing? I mean, this was kind of a worrisome study, especially for someone like me. I'm at a high-risk group for prostate cancer. My dad is a prostate cancer survivor. What did this study tell us?
Well, both of these studies are ongoing. Now, one of them was European and one of them is American, and they conflict just a little bit. But they both reveal that aggressive annual PSA screening in large populations of men definitely are going to detect more early prostate cancers. Now, in the American study, this did not translate into decreased prostate cancer deaths. On the other hand, the European study showed a modest 20% reduction in prostate cancer death rates. But this came at a high cost. And what was the cost? A lot of overdiagnosis and a lot of overtreatment. Now, one other point about this. It's possible that the discrepancy between the American and the European study related to a longer follow-up period in the European study, that is 9 years versus an average of 7 years in the American study. And what this might suggest is that the longer you go out over the course of many years, the more apparent becomes the advantage of annual prostate screening. That's a possibility. It's not proven.
Well, you know, obviously a 20% reduction sounds pretty good, but do you envision a change in consensus as a result of these studies? Do we have to fear perhaps that fewer men will undergo a PSA test?
Well, I don't think the recommendations are going to be altered at all just as of yet. The experts have to hash it out and yell at each other and try to arrive at some sort of consensus because it's not clear what all this means. If you look at some of the findings from the European study, here's one. For every 10,000 men who were screened with this PSA annually, around 7 prostate cancer deaths were prevented. Now, no disrespect to those 7 men, but think about it. It's a huge number of screening that has to take place in order to get, well, a small benefit in the population. Let's look at it another way. For every 48 prostate cancer cases that were diagnosed with this aggressive screening, annual screening, and for these men who were treated, 1 additional life was saved, or 1 life was saved. Fine, that's great for the 1 man whose life was saved, but what about the remaining 47 men who either failed treatment or underwent a lot of prostate cancer therapy for these not benign but not aggressive cancers that are never going to bother the person, never going to cause any symptoms? We can't lose sight of the fact that treatment for prostate cancer can have devastating side effects: impotence, incontinence.
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting because I read once a statement that said, you know, a man in his late 70s will more than likely die with prostate cancer than from it. So I appreciate your advice on that. We'll keep a closer eye on this as it develops. Again, Dr. Stan Wasbin. Doctor, thanks for your input.
Thank you.
A directory of the guests that we have here on Health This Week are at healththisweek.com. And, of course, on this program we had Dr. Nick Delgado and his stem cell therapy. Go to nickphd.com. Dr. Sheila Foreman, clinical psychologist. For more information, visit her website at drsheilafforeman.com. And, of course, Dr. Stan Wasbin. He's also known as the House Call Doctor. For more information about Dr. Stan, visit schousecalls.com. Well, that's all the time we have here in the very first episode of Health This Week. I want to thank you so much for joining us and watching the program. We'll see you again next week. Stay healthy.